Good evening and welcome to Cappy Talk FM. You're listening to Cappy Talk 100.4 FM. We are giving you radio that you can watch, and that's where the world is going. So even on Cappy Talk, stay tuned. Very soon, you'll be able to watch some of your most favorite programs and your presenters and their guests right here on this platform. So I'm also streaming to my viewers on the Facebook Live platform and on YouTube. Tonight, we are hosting Dr. Nkosana Moyo, who is an aspiring candidate for president in the 2018 elections here in Zimbabwe. So those who are watching live and those that also want to stream on Cappy Talk, it is cappytalkfm.co.zw. So you can watch and listen to this show for the entire hour that we're here. Some of your comments have been coming in since yesterday. So there are some burning questions we're going to try and address. But of course, we'll try to keep it as concise as possible because we only have our guest in studio for just under 1 hour. So make it good, get typing, and let's enjoy the program together. Dr. Nkosana Moyo, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
How is it being back home?
It's very good,
yeah?
As you'd expect. It's always good to be at home.
Yeah?
Yes.
And where have you been for the past 16 odd years?
I've been around, but you know, it's a global village, isn't
Yeah.
it? So I'm out there, I'm at home. It's all the same. It's a
Yeah.
global village.
Good. So, Dr. Moyo, you are running for president in 2018.
Yes, I am indeed.
That's a big deal.
Is it?
Yeah, it is.
Why is that?
It's a presidency. It's nothing to be taken lightly.
Well, essentially I'm inviting Zimbabweans to give me a job.
You're applying for the job.
I'm applying for a job.
Because some will say that for a call to presidency, you should be asked to serve by the people. Very few do people just throw in their hat and say, pick me. So some would say you should answer to a call as opposed to nominate yourself.
I'm not nominating myself. If you've been following social media, there are a lot of Zimbabweans who are saying, we're calling you to go and save your country. But
as of Friday, when you announced your presidency, had you been called? Or are they responding to your announcement?
No. There's been a lot. In fact, for the past, maybe 3 months, I've been saying, let me think about it. Let me think about it. Because people have been saying, where are you?
Yeah.
Come and help us.
Right.
The country is in trouble.
Right.
We need you. And I must be fair, it's not only me. Strive's name is appeared.
I've seen that.
In similar, yeah. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
I have seen that. You know, it's interesting that, you know, you've been outside of the country and now you're running for a country that you haven't been living in. Are you connected with the people?
When you say not living in, I only left in 2001. My mother still lives here. My siblings still live here. And so I come here regularly.
Okay, so you feel that's residing in here, in the country enough?
Well,
Being in and out?
Oh, absolutely. It's a global village, like I say. I know what goes on. I know what goes on everywhere in the country.
Right.
There's nothing that I do not know.
That's interesting. I mean, you do say it's a global village. We're connected digitally. But when it comes to an office such as the one you're aspiring to, one would say surely you need to be more in touch with people on the ground. I mean, grassroots, people that you can see, touch, feel every day, as opposed to Zimbabwe because online.
Absolutely. Absolutely agreed. And every time I've been coming to Zimbabwe, I would make a point of driving through the country just to keep connected.
Right.
Yes.
Right. So that's where you're targeting? Am I correct?
I'm targeting the country.
So, but you would have to start with home, in a way, no?
Everywhere is home. You see, once you understand what the problem is, for that office, there should be no home other than all of Zimbabwe. Right. All of it.
So you're targeting everyone.
Everyone.
You launched your announcement to run for presidency with your party, APA, and you launched at the Meikles Hotel. Why did you choose that? I'm sure you've seen the comments that are going around.
Yes, I've seen them.
About the choice of location for your launch. There was even a cartoon in one of the dailies over the weekend where you're sitting up in a tree and you're announcing that, you know, I'm running for president, and there's people at the bottom saying, Arutara Naniko, who is he speaking to? So who's your constituency? And why would you have chosen the Meikles Hotel?
Firstly, that's part of the problem with our country. If you want to talk to Zimbabweans, you have to get permission, which can be withheld for no good reason. Because, you know, in fact, we wanted to go to Highfield. We had got a place at Jennings Hall in Highfield, but would have needed police permission, which you and I know would not have been given.
Well, did you ask?
We didn't, because we knew would not have been given.
I mean, I can't comment to that.
So
but
I have just
your intentions.
Let me just tell you.
Right.
So I was going to go to my school, my primary school, where I did my primary education, and the CIO have been all over the place, intimidating everybody that I should not be allowed to go there. That's our country.
Right.
That's what is wrong with our country.
So let's go into, we'll get into the details of the country and what your answer to the country's needs are a bit later on in the program. But right now we do want to focus on you for a moment.
That's fine.
There are many people that are probably watching and listening who don't know enough about you. And of course, as we know, the internet doesn't tell us everything. So Dr. Moyo, you have a lot of former titles, but I want to focus on the man that you are right now. Looking at how you launched, there was also the question of gender.
Yeah.
Some assumed that because you were flanked by men when you were up there at the podium talking about your launch, that there's no female representation in your party. Can you speak to that?
Well, at the moment, so what was the launch about? The launch was about two decisions, actually. First one, that yes, now I've decided to run. So, because I've been listening to people in terms of independent or through a party, yes, I've decided not independent and a party. And through consultations, we've now formed a party. So those were the two decisions.
Right.
And that's what, it was not a launch, it was a press conference to announce those two things. So now, the work of forming a party and a team starts after I've made the decision.
So now you don't have a party, you don't have a team, you don't have structures.
We've got very few people. We are in the process of forming it.
Right.
Because I only remember 29th was just last week.
Yes.
Yes.
So the press conference is to announce your intentions, because unfortunately when it goes around, it's that Dr. Nkosana Moyo is running for president, and the next question is with whom? Who may constitute your team? You speak a lot of I. There's a comment that came in here from Dion Kandima who says, who is the doc working with? He usually says I.
Yeah, but again, so let's go back to what happened on the 29th. On the 29th, it was about the decisions I had to make.
Right.
But from the 29th onwards, it's going to be what happens in putting together a team. So I think people need to be fair, yeah? So the questions before the 29th were directed to me personally. You just said, come and run. It was not you in plural. It was you, Nkosana, or you Strive, consider running for the presidency.
Right.
And then the next question was, if you do it, consider whether you run as an independent, you, Nkosana, as an independent or as with a party.
Why
so
did
those
you
were
choose
the specific,
to create your own party?
As opposed to?
As opposed to joining any existing party, for example.
And why would I do that?
I don't know. My question would be, why wouldn't you?
Because I want to do something completely new. In terms of my view of what Zimbabwe needs is not being articulated by any of the existing parties. So I do not want to take pot shots at people. I want to focus on issues. The country is where it is because there is somebody running it. It didn't just happen on its own. And the opposition, I don't think, has articulated a message that resonates with what I think should happen. So on that basis, I figured the only way to do this, in order to follow what I think is needed for the country, is to come with a brand new platform.
Would you have had the option? I mean, the way you speak as though it was actually a choice to not join any existing party. The confidence is almost as though you have the option. What makes you think that the opposition even trusts you?
Well,
some will say after 16 years of living outside and being up and down, almost virtually silent when it comes to active Zim politics. Some would say, well,
well, that's possible.
So,
that's absolutely possible.
Yeah.
But it's factual, actually, that ZimPF approached me after their bus staff up with Mrs. Mujuru. They approached me officially, both the youth and the executive, and said, can you come and run our party? And I said, no.
Why?
Why what? Why did they approach me?
Turn them down?
Because they already formed a party with a certain policy position, certain things they believed in. They formed that party with particular people who I don't think would have been a good starting point for what I want to do.
Right.
Yeah. So, and I think hopefully we can get into what is different about what I want to do.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm curious.
Where is the country?
Yeah.
And what do I believe needs to be done?
Sure.
So the country, I think, is characterized by three things, which I think are really serious issues. We've talked about the police. In my opinion, when you look at the Central Intelligence Organization, the judiciary, the police, and the army, these are institutions that are supposed to be institutions of state. In other words, every Zimbabwean should feel that I own them and they protect me.
Right.
But the way our country functions, that's not the case they operate. They operate as if they were appendages to ZANU, and that is wrong. So one of the things that are absolutely pivotal in terms of getting the relationship between government and the citizens to work properly, is that those institutions of state should become institutions of state, not appendages of ZANU. And I dare say, my view is that the people who work in them would get much better fulfillment being professionals who serve all Zimbabweans equally. So that's point number one.
How would you fix something like that? I use the word fix because to you it seems like a problem. So something like that is huge. I mean, when we talk about government and state, that's massive. And to change the mindsets of people, it's almost as though you'd flush out.
Let me tell you what. No. Let me.
Is it? I mean, how would you?
I think you know, as they say, fish rots from the top, from the head. From the head.
Right.
The leader of this country will give guidance in terms of what the culture of how those institutions are run is. So, firstly, it starts with the leader, the head of the country. Secondly, the people who are appointed to run those institutions and the instructions they are given. Those are the only two things you need. And the Zimbabweans, fortunately for us, are capable of professionalism of the highest standard. So I don't think it's going to be as difficult as you think. Not at all.
Interesting. All right, let's get your comments and thoughts coming in. This is Dr. Nkosana Moyo. He is running for president next year in the 2018 elections here in Zimbabwe, and he has announced his candidacy, which happened last week, Friday. So your questions are welcome right here on this platform. Also on Cappy Talk, that is 0717 777. Send us your WhatsApp comments and your questions for Dr. Moyo as we discuss with him more about his idea that he is going to become the next president for Zimbabwe. So you can also stream on cappytalkfm.com. So do stay tuned, stay connected, and let's keep talking. So here's some more comments. LC Chi says, we don't want old folks as presidential candidates. Please give young ones a chance. Are you old?
So, well, it depends. It's a matter of opinion, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I think that question or that comment is really quite telling. I think if we want to run a successful country, that comment is appropriate, but everybody should be able to compete. Remember where I started from. When you are applying for a job, that's where I look at it. And citizens of Zimbabwe, through their vote, are deciding who is the right person for the job. So fine, young people should put in their application. So don't prejudge who should apply. Let folks apply. If you want to put an age limit, do so through the Constitution.
Right.
And say, younger than so-and-so not allowed, older than so-so not allowed.
You're 65 now.
I'm 65.
Right. Dr. Nkosana is 65. Let us know your thoughts on age. Is it a factor when we're considering a president? Send your comments here on this Facebook platform or 0717 777. Dr. Moyo,
By the way, we hadn't finished. What are the
you were
key
on point
issues?
number one. You said you had three. So I'll allow you to give us
the second
next
point.
one.
I think for any country to succeed, its population needs to be made to feel as a nation. In other words, unified, cohesive, because in running a country and building a country, there are always going to be priorities required. And priorities require that you postpone doing certain things. It's easier to do that when you are joined up and you agree that we're going to prioritize these things, we're going to sequence these things, and because resources are limited, that's the only way you're going to succeed. And also there is a lot of sacrifice required. Who is going to sacrifice? The nation itself will have to sacrifice. So all of those things you can only do if the nation is joined up. So cohesion of our country is a must. And that's another reason, incidental, why I chose that a new platform was appropriate. At the moment, we've set up platforms which communicate a lot of conflict between different parties, as opposed from day one an understanding that what we're seeking to do is build cohesion of Zimbabweans. And also in the name, we are making it clear that it's not my agenda. It is the people's agenda that is important. So we want servant leadership. That's why I use this issue of the Zimbabweans are giving you a job. You are not the boss. They are the boss.
Right.
Understand they are the boss. And what you do is according to what they want to be done.
They give you the job description and you're supposed to serve.
Absolutely, yeah, you consult them and you need to understand what it is they think is an issue.
Right.
Okay? The third component is the economy, very obviously. And I think the economy issue has got a number of components, but one of them is clarity what the role of government is. My view is that government cannot be both a player and a referee. Yeah? Government has got a responsibility for creating certain public goods like infrastructure. After that, the government should create an environment which allows citizens, entrepreneurs, and the private sector
Right.
to partner it in creating a robust and growing economy.
Sure.
Those are the three key issues.
I am with you.
And I've not yet heard them articulated like I'm doing by anybody. I challenge you to go check all your records, your archives, and come and tell
So
me.
you feel what you're explaining is new
It's
in terms
absolutely
of rhetoric from a politician who's leading the who wants
Hopefully
to
not
lead the
just
country.
rhetoric.
Yeah.
This is substance.
Right.
Okay?
Okay.
Yeah.
Dr. Nkosana Moyo, 0717-777-777. If you're listening on Capi Talk FM or streaming on capitalk.com, you can send your comments. Now, looking at, again, your launch and the fact that you said you're still building your structures, still deciding on who your full team will be. I have a question around who the big bag, what was the big bag?
There's no big bag. I was announcing that I'm running.
No.
So
I believe that there was a component that maybe a group of gentlemen that you were working with, that you were supposed to launch together as a party.
No, let's not confuse issues.
Then
there
this
is a
didn't work
small
out.
there is a small team I've been working with, because clearly, as I made the decision, I also wanted a capacity, a limited capacity, to engage with the Zimbabweans, especially because of the issue of independent or non-independent candidate. So I needed a capacity, and I built that very small capacity for me to be able to make those two decisions. But now that I've decided, now we begin building for certain what the manifesto is going to contain, what the policy framework is going to be, and beginning to build a team. But you need to be aware that our country has gotten to such a point where a lot of citizens are afraid to put their hand up. If I asked you to join me, my guess is that 70% probability, you'd probably say no, not because you didn't want to, but because you are afraid. You are afraid that your sustenance would be cut from under your feet. So there are a lot of people who've told me, let me finish. A lot of people have told me, Nkosana, we like what you're doing, we'll join you, but we're not going to do on this side of you winning. Because if we do, our livelihoods will be completely destroyed. That's where our country's got to.
Okay, I was, more specific in the question that I want to ask you. It's believed that you were supposed to launch a party together with Dr. Shingi Munyeza, Pastor Ivan Mawarire, and Trevor Ngube, that you were supposed to be working together.
Well, I don't know who you've been talking to.
Is this inaccurate?
Yeah, it's completely inaccurate.
You were never working with the four of them?
I'm working with all Zimbabweans. Those Zimbabweans, so if I come and talk to you, am I launching a party with you? Am I working with you? Should I talk to you and consult you? I think the answer is yes, I should talk to you and consult you. So it's a question of what.
So you were never planning to launch together?
I talked to
and then
all of
perhaps
these
things
people
went
you
sour
mentioned.
and now you went alone and
No.
now there's a bit of disunity?
No.
That's completely inaccurate information.
Completely inaccurate.
This is
But I
interesting.
talked to all of those people, incidentally, plus more.
You do?
Yes, absolutely.
And are any of them going to be joining your team?
Well, it's not for me to say.
Who is
You have to ask
You're
them.
the president of
You
the
have
party.
to, no. You have to ask them. Because I've explained to you, a lot of people are terrified because of how our government behaves. Yeah? But I talk to Zimbabweans, and some of them will want that mentioned, and others will say no. I would rather talk to you, but it's behind scenes.
Interesting.
Because I do not want it put in the public domain.
Yeah.
Seeing you mentioned those names, I absolutely talk to them, and I'll continue talking to them on a consultation basis.
You never
Because
had plans?
Plans to do what?
Together?
No. I've talked to them. As I've talked to many more who you haven't mentioned. Yeah.
I wouldn't know everything. I just based on what I do know in terms of the level of.
But I think you're being
research.
misinformed.
Is it?
Yes.
Well, that's good to know. I mean, the nice thing about radio and television is that you hear things from the horse's mouth. It can be quoted, but at the end of the day, we hear it from him. And if his answer is as it is, then we can move on to the next question. We've got comments coming in on WhatsApp and Facebook, so keep them coming. 0717-777-777 if you're listening to Capi Talk, and then right here on our Facebook platform. Maureen Kademaunga. Hello, Maureen. What is his strategy to win the election in the limiting environment he's describing?
Well, so let me tell you what. I think we just have to look at history. What did Ian Smith do, and what did he say? He said, not in 1,000 years. So it was a very limiting environment. Where are we today? We're not under an Ian Smith regime, are we? So my view is that that question has to be seen in that light. There is no way, anywhere in the world who has been able to keep the citizens under that limiting environment forever. It just doesn't happen. And this country at the moment, the citizens of this country are very unhappy.
Right.
So I believe that when the citizens say enough is enough, it will change.
Right. So you are...
As it has happened everywhere else,
right.
yeah.
Another comment here, Nathaniel Munetsi says, what measures will you put in place to ensure that votes are not stolen? Don't know, this is, yeah.
Yeah, again, you see, that question, interestingly, it says, what will you? I say, what will Zimbabweans do? This is a Zimbabweans project, not a Nkosana project. So if Zimbabweans decide to give me the job is to run the country. It is the Zimbabweans' responsibility to put me in the position of running the country.
But that question is very key to what you're expecting from them, because Zimbabweans are not going to put you in that position if they don't believe in an election system. So that question is probably multi-tiered, but the way it was worded, I'll reword it and say, we're going into an election period where there is so much voter apathy, right? The people that you're asking to vote for you do not believe in the system in a lot of ways. They don't believe in the electoral process. So you, running for president, asking for this job, right, for Zimbabweans to put you in this job, how do you expect to get their vote when they're not even going to go to the polling station?
So let's deal with the facts. I think you've chosen to say they don't believe in the vote. I choose to say they don't believe in those who've offered themselves so far. So it's like you going to a restaurant. There is a menu, and you decide on the basis of that menu whether that's the restaurant you're going to go to. If that menu does not suit you, you choose another restaurant, right? Or that particular restaurant changes its menu in order for you to come to eat there. So Zimbabweans who've chosen not to vote, I think we need to be humble enough to consider the possibility that what they've seen on offer has been like a menu which does not contain the dish they want.
Interesting. Zimbabweans, it's you who's listening, it's you who's watching, it's you who's voting next year. We all have to re-register come 2018. None of us are registered right now in the voters' roll. It's going to be a process that one has to commit to, believe in the candidates and believe in the process itself. Let us know if you agree with Dr. Nkosana's analogy here. Is it that the menu was not satisfactory, that you didn't go and choose what you're going to eat or who you're going to vote for? Let's know your thoughts. 0717 777 777. We will be right back.
Damn yeah. Sometimes I may be green, depending on my smile. Sometimes I feel blue, but it's really been a while. So color me brown, but I never miss red. Sprinkle a little bit of yellow just to brighten up my day. My girl's black and white like my old TV set. Mama's always on my case, her room needs a paint job. But I be like, nah, I'm trying to get a day job. I can paint the picture vivid, forget it all on credit. So tell me where to look.
Superior paint technology, amazing quality guaranteed. Give me some color and rock my world. Give me some color and take my world. Superior paint technology, amazing quality guaranteed. Nash Paint. Give me some color and rock my world. Nash Paint. Give me some color and paint my world. Nash Paint.
Nash Paints. Superior paint technology, amazing quality guaranteed.
Welcome back to Ruvheneko Online. We are streaming to you live on Capi Talk FM, 100.4 FM, Zimbabwe's leading talk radio station. And that's also a live stream available on capitalkfm.com. And we're also right here on Facebook Live and on YouTube. We're speaking to Dr. Nkosana Moyo, who is aspiring presidential candidate of 2018. And we were just before the break discussing his idea of why it is there's so much voter apathy. And I'd asked you to let us know if you agree with that you weren't going to vote as Zimbabweans because you didn't believe in the candidates that were on offer, or is it something otherwise? So let us know what your interpretation is. So let's come into a little bit about your past. You know, I know that whenever we speak to candidates, people will always say, we want to hear Utavachati, which is fine. I think you've spoken some of those points, and we'll get into a little bit more. Yeah. But one thing that I know has come up is saying, how do we trust you when you have been part of the very same system that you're now speaking against? You served for 10 months in the ZANU-PF government, and you left. And when you did leave, you know, we'll get into the detail because I'm curious to hear your word on it. But when you did leave, the president called you a coward. And he said that we wanted Amadoda Sibili, right? real men
Yeah.
who will be able to be strong enough to stand by, you know, the government and the country. How do you take this in terms of you then leaving the entire country after resigning?
Well, let's start from why did I go into cabinet to start with. So if you go back and look at the records, in the late 90s, I came back from Tanzania where I was running Standard Chartered Bank.
Right.
And it was obvious to me then that the country was headed in the wrong direction. So I started writing articles in the Financial Gazette about what I thought should happen. Because the president then told me that it was because of those articles that he figured that if there was an opportunity for me to save my country, I would take it, which is what I did. But when I got into cabinet, it became obvious. It doesn't take 10 years for you to realize that I was in cabinet, but ZANU as a party, remember, I was not a ZANU person myself. I was outside. I was a non-party person.
And you were appointed.
Yes,
you
I was
didn't
appointed.
even expect to be,
I was
believe,
appointed, yes, yeah, absolutely.
called.
So when I got into cabinet, my ideas of what we ought to be, what we should have been doing then were just never implemented. So what should I have done? Just stayed taking a salary, as I've told you, it's a job by the citizens. Stay and take a salary for doing nothing?
Sorry, you know, that sounds like you threw a tantrum after 10 months.
No, not at all.
That because you weren't getting your way, you
Absolutely
chose to
not.
leave.
No, not at all.
Why would why would you not give it more time? I mean, 10 months is, by any standard, is not a long time to be part of an institution or even a new job.
Okay, so
why
look at the
take
evidence.
just 10 months for you to leave?
Look at the evidence. So I left because I disagreed with what was being done. So if the country had turned around and done very well, then we could have this conversation. I told them this country was going the wrong way. I told them we're not doing the right things. I suggested what we ought to be doing. And evidently they said no. And look at what has happened. We're talking today, the country is in a mess, and you're saying I should have stayed when I was not being listened to. Stay to, I keep asking this question, stay to do what exactly?
Some will say, I mean, there's different ways of playing politics. Some will say fight from within, and some will bail. So my question to you is just understanding why it is that you left. I think resigning is one thing, but then leaving the entire country almost makes it feel like you're abandoning your people, that you got the opportunity to work with the existing and leading government. And then after 10 months, when you realize that you were not being heard, you left.
But again,
and that's almost like you left Zimbabweans and went and did what you were doing. And now
I
you're back
think that's,
asking for their vote.
I think people who are suggesting that, firstly, I think the way we manage our human capital, my view is that not just Zimbabwe, but the African continent is not understood something. When people leave the country in which they are citizens and go elsewhere, my opinion is that they should be considered as an extension of your network as a country. And that's what everybody else does. Except Africa, when you leave your country, it's considered as betrayal as opposed to it's a tentacle.
I don't know who everybody else is.
Well, let me finish. Let me finish, yeah? So if you were an African and you leave your country, and let's say something happens to you, you lose your passport, just in order to test the system, the way you are treated does not give you the impression that you are valued where you are. I'm suggesting to you, leaving your country is not as you describe it. In fact, it should be described as an opportunity to extend your network as a country into other countries. Look at all the successful countries. That's how they do it. Look at Israel.
So your interpretation of your leaving is that you were not abandoning your country. You were just basically spreading your tentacles of Zimbabwe.
If Zimbabwe chose to use me in a different capacity, wherever I was. So let me give you another example. So when I left here...
You could have been an ambassador.
But just hold on. When I left here, I went to Washington. And I saw something which was fascinating, which supports what I'm saying. So countries, delegations which came from countries to engage with the World Bank, IFC or World Bank, always before they came would consult their citizens who were in these institutions for them to be schooled, almost guided as to how to structure their engagement with those institutions. African delegations never did. They wouldn't talk to their own citizens in these institutions to get guidance as to how most effectively to engage. So we are not using our human capital, wherever it may lie, as effectively as other people have understood how to do.
Okay, Dr. Nkosana Moyo, live right now, explaining why he left the country, and in essence, talking about how leaving the country physically doesn't mean leaving it, entirely. And he could have been better used while he was outside. So we're going to look at, this other aspect of what you did do while you were in government, because some people can't let go of that. Here's a comment from Honorable Pardon Mateko. Prove that you are not ZANU. Why are you supporting Mnangagwa? What's the difference between you and Mtambara or Simba Makoni?
And why does he say I'm supporting Mnangagwa?
I think I can understand that. I read an article earlier
go on, yes.
in reference to an interview I believe you had on one of these online,
I think it was. Yeah.
And you said that people should give Mnangagwa a chance. He's a very smart man.
No.
You saw the article?
No, I saw the article.
So
but let me tell you what was asked and what I said.
Right.
Yeah. I was asked, what do you think about Mnangagwa? If Mnangagwa took over, would he run the country differently from President Mugabe? And I said, yes, he would. He would run the country differently. He is a smart man. I know him personally. And those things are true. I never said give him a chance. So, and that is being twisted deliberately. But part of what we have to understand, what I'm offering Zimbabweans is a leader who is going to unify our people. And hurling insults at anybody who is Zimbabwean is not the good starting point. So I will recognize good things about President Mugabe, Mr. Mnangagwa, VP Mnangagwa, President of the party, Morgan Tsvangirai. I think when you want to build cohesion in a country, you have to learn the lesson of respecting others, even if you disagree with them. It's very important. But
so your comment was not to say that give him a chance. It was just to say that he would run the country differently.
That was the question.
Well, anybody would run the country differently.
No, but I answered the question.
Okay.
I answered
so that's the context and that's clarity. So I hope that answers you there. Comments there. Another question. Well, this is a reference to your 10 months, but I think you've explained why you felt 10 months was long enough and why you decided to move on. And while you were in ZANU-PF, one of the things I believe you spoke...
Not in ZANU-PF.
In the government.
Yeah.
Let me be corrected, but semantics. All right. One of the things I do believe you spoke to was the land redistribution program. You had thoughts on how it happened, and you also had corrections on how it should have happened. Now, in retrospect, not much can be changed because Jakaitika.
Yeah.
My question would be, is there any intention, if you do become president, to redo anything regarding land redistribution or speak to it in a different way, or will you just let sleeping dogs lie?
I think at the moment, my understanding is that we're not giving a lot of people title. So there is land redistribution without land redistribution. I think title is very important in terms of productivity and for the owners or the users of that land actually to be able to access capital and leverage the utility of that land. For as long as we are not clear about title to the people who settled on this land, I think we're shortchanging ourselves. So there are certain elements of how the redistribution is being done to date, which I think need to be looked at in order to make it more effective in terms of productivity.
Okay, tell us one
But the principle of redistribution, not to be revisited.
The principle.
It had to be done.
Right. So like I said, what exactly would you do? Like
I've just given you an example. Title.
Okay.
To allow better utility of the land.
Yeah? But how does that happen when, many farmers are still learning in a lot of ways? Some are there already, but there's other systems that affect the productivity of our farming industry. So how would you speak to that?
Yeah, but when
there's
just
something like
other
command
systems,
agriculture, for example. Do you believe in something like that?
No, but remember what I said at the beginning. The role of government is very important to clarify. I think Zimbabweans have got the skills to do things for themselves. Government has to create an environment and not to be a player. That's my view. So I don't see the way that government wants to be a player as well as a referee as a very constructive way to engage and create partnerships with people who are the agents of economy. My view is that in terms of extension services, for instance, those should be reestablished and strengthened to assist the farmers farm properly. But I don't think it gets away from land title. Because when you go to a bank and you don't have title to land, you've got nothing to use to secure the finances that you ought to access. So you don't get finance. And that's a huge issue. And the government needs to make a decision. Either we believe in title or leasehold, whatever the case may be, and let's do it. to allow people to access finance and farm productively.
So that, in a way, speaks to parts of something like command agriculture. Do you agree with that?
No. You know, there is a financial services sector. It's there already. So why does government get involved as a player where there are farmers and there are banks? But the only role that I believe government ought to be playing is the agri-techs component to support technically, which is always happened in this country, by the way. Our agriculture was world famous because of those technical services. The development of different strains of seeds and so on and so on. That's what we ought to strengthen. The financing, the relationship between the financing and the farmer, the private sector can take care of that.
Right.
So let's not interfere with that. Let's leave that happen and let's facilitate, create the environment which allows it to happen. And what is that? Title is a component which is very important.
That's the beginning of it.
Yes.
Interesting. Now, we are running through this program, 0717 777 capitalkfm.com, and we're also live right here on Facebook and on YouTube. Your comments are coming in. A question from Kasile Zolani to Kakana. How do you plan on unifying the country? And I'll extend that because there were as well comments online, which I would need you to clarify, regarding the difference in tribes and races and all that in our country. And one of the issues that burns a lot of, especially the Ndebele, around colonial history and just our history, in general, is that of Gukura Hundi. And there was a comment that I read, which was quoting you saying that you opted, I'll just, subquote it, you opted not to comment, saying that let's not focus on the past and let's move forward. When it comes to unity, there's some that can't forget that past or choose to hold on to it. And if you're going to be the president, how do you unify a people by ignoring their past?
Okay, so it's interesting your phrasing. You say, I opted not to comment. Actually, I commented and gave my view of how I think it ought to be dealt with. That's not the same as not commenting. Yeah. So how do I? Firstly, who am I? I've got a Ndebele mother. I've got a Karanga father. I've got a Manyika wife. Okay. So I hope that tells you there is nothing tribal about my makeup and my thinking, at all. So you can extend that in terms of who are my kids and what have you. So how do you unify the country? Firstly, I think the way you construct your administration should talk to the population without you having to explain anything. In other words, gender balance, racial balance, age issues, all of those, the way you put your cabinet together, your administration together, all Zimbabweans must see it rather than have to listen to you speak to it. That's how you do it. And then in your behavior, this country, development, approach to development, it must be a holistic, all-country development. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to use an example. I hope that is acceptable. So when I drive in Zimbabwe, all of the roads, especially in the cities, the potholes are unbelievable. But when I drive towards the president's house, there is cat's eyes.
On the road?
On the road. That's not unified country. If I drive to Zwimba, similarly, the roads which go to where the president lives are taken care of. Even the First Lady commented on this, that it would appear that if the president is known to be planning to go somewhere, then the roads get sorted out. That is not how you unify a country. Citizens must feel if we are in it together. So if we don't have resources and our roads are not being looked after, it must be perceived uniformly that that is the case. The resources that we have must be applied across the whole country so that development is perceived to be holistic, all country and all citizens involved. That's how you unify a country.
Interesting comments there on unity from Dr. Nkosana Moyo as we are live on Capi Talk 100.4 FM, the top talk radio station in the country. And we're also right here on Facebook Live. And Dr. Nkosana, I wanted to also ask you about the 2018 elections themselves. As you build your structures and develop your party, there'll be more announcements, I guess, in the next couple of months, which we will stay closely to and observe. One question we do want to know is there are lots of talks of coalition governments regarding, coming together and going against the current regime. What are your thoughts on that? Yeah, okay. Having said that you're standing alone right now with your party. Yeah.
So how is a coalition formed? So let's take countries which form a coalition after an election. How do they do it? So you find that, so this party goes to elections with its own mandate of, its own manifesto of what it would like to do. Another party does the same. And these parties, if the population does not appoint one head of state and they end up having to compromise, then these parties come together and they have to compromise in what the offer is going to be, right? Now, I have told you that I've articulated to you what I believe in and what I believe needs to be done. I've not heard anybody else articulate that.
The way that you did.
I do not want it diluted before I've put it before Zimbabweans for them to be the final judge.
Okay.
So I think it's only fair that what I'm saying about where this country ought to go, what I'm saying about what needs to be fixed, ought to be heard from me, undiluted. I do not want to go have a meeting somewhere and start adjusting what I have to say because somebody else says, no, 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 I don't want. Let's take the example.
So in essence, you will not join a coalition
but just hold
because
on.
you don't
Let's take
want
the issue
your
of
message
Gukuraundi.
to be diluted.
Let's take the issue of Gukuraundi. I do not want somebody to say, we believe in this, and for that to be somebody else's attitude towards Gukuraundi. I want the population to hear what APA thinks about how Gukuraundi ought to be approached. If the population does not agree, I don't think it should be fudged through hiding behind another party. I think it should be what APA believes on the economy, on the institutions of state, on cohesion, on things about national healing. It should be heard undiluted.
I don't doubt
And
that
then
your
Zimbabweans-
message would be undiluted. I do want you to answer my question
but
specifically.
that answer is an
to
answer to
say-
your question.
No, it doesn't answer me. Are you going to consider joining any of the coalitions?
On what basis?
On the basis that you are running for president, you formed a party, and some parties who have run for president before, who have been in the race for years, have now decided, let's come together.
For what purpose?
For their joint purpose. They
No,
have
no,
many
no.
different.
You need to articulate.
Their
So-
purpose is to run the country, to take
So
over
why
from
do
the
they
existing
need a
party
coalition
that's
to do
running.
that?
That's my question to you. That would you consider joining them? If you don't understand their purpose, then that's one story. But for me to say, well, APA consider joining any of the coalitions is a very straightforward question.
But if I don't know the purpose, I just don't know, join a club if I do not know the purpose.
So your answer is you don't yet understand or know their purpose?
No, I don't.
So you don't have an answer to it? You don't have a yes or no to it yet?
I don't understand the purpose.
You don't have a yes or no to it yet?
No, but just hold on. What is an election? An election is a choice by the citizens. Choice between what? So if you eliminate...
Between candidate A, B, C, or D.
So could one argue that a coalition is an attempt to rig an election?
People could argue so many things about coalitions.
Because you are
That's
depriving...
I'm not here to analyze a
but
coalition
you
with you. I'm here
need
to ask you,
need
as a
to.
presidential candidate, that down the line,
Yeah.
because the other thing with politics, Dr. Moyo, and in Zimbabwe especially, is that goalposts shift all the time, right? There's factionalism, there's breakups, there's splits, and all sorts of things. You've been accused of being sent in to split the vote. We could get into that, but I won't.
No,
What I'm
you
asking-
should. Feel free to.
But
Feel
I
free
want to
to.
stick to what I'm focusing on now, being that aspect of in 3 months' time, are we then going to see a front page spread of Dr. Nkosana Moyo sitting next to Mr. Morgan Trangirai because you've decided to now enter a coalition?
If MDC and APA analyze what they believe in, and it turns out to be exactly the same, then clearly there is no point. Then it's like I go into my restaurant example. I go into my restaurant and I offer exactly the same dish, but it's 2 different things. Then there would be no purpose in running
Dr.
a...
Moore, you can't honestly tell me that you don't know what the other parties are offering.
So do you know?
You don't?
Do you know?
I'm not the one running for president.
But
I'm not
you
the one
should
running a
vote.
party.
But are you not going to vote?
I am voting, but they also need to put their statements forward. Right now, we don't know who's heading which party. We don't know which coalition is what. But I'm speaking to you as an individual.
I told
and
you I do
saying,
not
when
know what
you go
they-
ahead,
I do
are you
not
going
know
to
what they're
consider
offering.
that? So you don't know what they're offering, so for now, no comment, which is fine.
Okay, fine.
Let's take some comments. We have about 3 minutes left before we have to cut off here on Capi Talk FM. We got Leah Mushi watching from Dar es Salaam. Hi, Leah. She's one of our colleagues in the Gracia Michelle network. Terrio Daphne, he has a vision. That's a comment. And then another comment from Tendai Zinyama. Isn't his move to run for president an ill-informed decision? Others have failed before. Why will he succeed?
Others have failed before, and why, on that basis, we should never do anything that anybody else failed in.
So you're not going to fail?
Listen, on the basis of that logic, it means anything that anybody has failed, you don't do.
But you're not of that belief?
No, of course not.
Okay. We're going to have to cut off, but I have one more question around voter, like I said, voter apathy, which we touched on briefly, but that is a big issue. And I'm curious to know how you're going to motivate. I know you're putting your hat in and saying, I'm also on offer, right, on the menu, to go back to your analogy. But how are you going to motivate, especially the youth vote, for people to go and register? Because this election is different to any other. There's no existing voters' roll. So basa riombe. To get people to register, then to get them to show up on election day. Do you have an individual strategy for that?
For the youth?
To inspire people to go and vote?
For the youth in particular?
For all Zimbabweans.
Okay, but let me tell you a thought I had, which I'm going to implement for the youth. At the moment, we've got a cabinet which is completely bloated. We've got a cabinet with ministers and the deputy ministers who actually, most of the time, with all due respect to people involved, do nothing. They don't even go to cabinet. My view is that cabinet should be shrunk to less than 20 people. Strip no deputy ministers. In the place of deputy ministers, I propose to put in a layer of junior ministers. Junior, and all those positions will be occupied only by young people. Why?
What is a young person?
Define whether you use a UN definition, whatever, up to 35.
Under 35.
Under
sure.
35. Okay, so let's use that definition. Why would I do that? It's a kind of, firstly, one component is an apprenticeship. They learn through doing the job and being at the table where the job is done, where the decisions are taken.
Do they have any decision power?
They would sit in cabinet. Okay, so that's point number one. Point number two.
Sitting and having power are two different things.
Well,
as an apprenticeship,
remember,
are they there to
when
observe?
I say sitting in cabinet, I'm comparing it to deputy ministers who don't sit in cabinet. You know they don't.
Correct.
Yeah? Correct. So if they are coming to cabinet, they are coming not to just observe.
Participating,
they're participating.
And they have power to
Absolutely,
influence.
they are participating.
Sure. Interesting.
But a very important component of why this should, really we should implement this. Young people, it's known and accepted. Creativity, innovativeness, energy comes from young people. And when a nation does not define properly the participation of young people, it deprives itself of all of these things. That's why I believe that instead of having deputy ministers, we'll have junior ministers, and they will contribute in all these ways.
You speak so highly of young people, and you say these are under 35, but at 65 you want to be a president. How does that appeal? Do you just want to lead the young people?
Why is that a mutually exclusive issue?
It's a question.
So, you see, I was very clear. I categorized for you. What are young people good at? I've given you those things. Are you implying that old people have got nothing to contribute? I actually beg to differ.
Sure.
Our challenge...
The offering is different.
Our challenge in society is how to synthesize what the older generation has got to offer and what the younger generation has got to offer. It's not a question of either or.
Sure.
It's an end-end issue.
Sure.
And that's what I'm constructing through that construct.
Well, we are going to hear lots more from Dr. Moyo, I'm sure, in the coming weeks and months. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to round up now. And social media, if you have any parting words, do let us know. But Dr. Moyo, before we do round up with you, I mean, this is a fresh interview. I mean, your first one that you've done in Zimbabwe. So thank you for affording us that opportunity.
My pleasure.
And as I said, we're going to hear more from you. But your parting shot to those listening and watching about your recent announcement to lead this country from 2018 going forward?
My parting shot is that I think we have had enough of what is going on, and now it is time to look at somebody fresh to lead our country into a very different space where we'll all be proud of what Zimbabwe can be.
Thank you. And have you heard that you're the People's Bay or Grandpa Bay?
What does that mean?
Google it. We're going to cut off now, and I would like to thank all of you for contributing to our program tonight. This has been Capitalk 100.4 FM, leading the conversation. I'm Ruvheneko and was hosting Dr. Nkosana Moyo. And to all our Facebook viewers, thank you for joining us as usual. I'll be back again tomorrow, and I'll be sitting right here with Dr. Joyce Mujuru. So do tune in for that at 6 p.m. tomorrow. That's it from me. Good night. Be good. And if you can't be good, be safe.